living without expectations does not mean living without boundaries. And an expectation is not, and we're not trying to split hairs here. We're trying to be very precise in this communication. If I have an expectation that someone speaks to me in a certain way, or treats me in a certain way, or interacts or relates with me in a certain way, I'm going to try to get them to conform to that mode of interaction, trying to expect others into a certain behavior, which is a control and safety strategy, or a preference strategy, or an attachment and or aversion strategy, or a fear projection strategy. So you say, well, I don't want to have expectations. Expectations bad. Well, expectations aren't bad. If we imagine them to be bad, then we have a throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of process. If we say expectations not optimal, consciousness is, and conscious boundary definition that is balancing of all relationships and operates in optimized harmony in all of our relationships, allows us to say, in this moment, for this reason, I'm setting this boundary. I don't expect that this person will respect it, and I will hold it. And I will put whatever energy is required in that situation, whatever it is, to define that boundary, state it clearly and precisely, and then maintain it. And it won't be a habit. It'll be a conscious choice in that moment. And it won't be driven by a past wound or fear or misunderstanding or projection from the past onto the present. It will be a choice in this moment that I can effect through any means, whether verbally or social distancing or through body language or whatever other choices I may make in life. I set that boundary and I maintain it consciously. So conscious boundaries are healthy boundaries, and they're always informed and up to the moment accurate in their process. And now, if we compare that boundary management to someone who's been traumatized in the past, let's say they were beaten as a child, does it make sense that they may fear physical proximity or may fear being hurt again? So therefore, they may generically create a boundary that says, nobody's coming near me because they could hurt me or beat me up like I was hurt as a child. And would that be seen as an expectational boundary rather than a conscious boundary? The conscious boundary says, this is what truly is in the moment, what's really happening, how these other people are really acting or operating or choosing. So I'm setting my boundaries based on that. I'm not setting my boundaries based upon pain or unresolved trauma or wounding from the past. Now, that's not the whole answer to your statement and questions. That said, is it making sense so far?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So that said, expectations, not having any expectations doesn't mean you don't care about yourself. It doesn't mean you don't maintain yourself and ensure that your well-being is always 100% maintained, supported, kept from harm or mistreatment or others' expectations of you. You having no expectations doesn't mean that you're required to operate as the result of or be affected by anyone else's expectations at all. Now, metaphor here, that doesn't mean that we're advocating going 100 miles an hour down the highway or down a 30-mile-an-hour street and saying, well, I don't have any expectations and I'm not going to yield to the expectations of the police officer with the radar gun. We're making sense with that. There's a conscious awareness of process and situational awareness, conscious present moment situational awareness that is generative of conscious present moment boundary setting. The boundary I set in this moment may be 180 degrees different than the boundary I set tomorrow. If conditions change, my boundaries change. If relational dynamics change, my boundaries may change if I consciously choose that that be so. And all of you have the right to set your boundaries as you choose. We simply suggest setting them consciously rather than either via expectations, projections, unhealed wounds, prior unresolved or reconciled relational dynamics, or trauma or fear. When we release expectations, we release the projections onto others that we have been making in the past. Therefore, we do see far more clearly what is. That doesn't mean that other people see us more clearly. It doesn't mean that that they're understanding us as clearly as we're understanding them. So it's a bit, if you've heard the old expression, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Well, you become the one-eyed person or two-eyed person, where others are operating blinded by their own projections and expectations and tribal dynamics and role dynamics and positionalities or their philosophies or their scientific process or their beliefs or whatever. So at that point, you gain the capacity to see all of that all the time whenever you're interacting with someone, and you can choose very precisely in a real-time way to effect a boundary on one topic and not on another. So if you're communicating with someone and they say, I really enjoy your company and it'd be nice to have you over to visit and have dinner with the family, you can say yes. And they say, and by the way, I sell insurance, so I'd like to sell you some insurance while you're over at my family's dinner. You can say, no. And this is a vitally important nuance that you've communicated here, because there is a dynamic of buffering tolerance of other people's karmas or unconscious or subconscious expectational dynamics and or behaviors that if you're very present and very aware, you may see these things occurring in people as they're living them and expressing them and presenting them to you. You can very consciously choose either to set a boundary and address them in the present moment, or to jot down a note and say, well, these 2 out of 3 behaviors and interactive dynamics I'm okay with. This third one, I'm not aligned with it, or I'm not resonant with it, or this is not something I would choose to tolerate on an ongoing basis. It may not be socially acceptable in this moment for me to address it in a public venue or in a family reunion or whatever. And so I can tolerate it for the moment. I can say, Uncle Joe got drunk and went driving his car, and I couldn't stop him, and I couldn't keep him safe, and he's okay. He didn't have a car wreck or anything, and I will go talk with him tomorrow before he gets drunk and drives again. The capacity to be tolerant in the present moment and to effect a strategy of facilitation and transformation and boundary setting in future, and say, Uncle Joe, next time we go to a family reunion, I'm going to drive and you don't get the keys. And this is an ever evolving process, by the way, of expectational release, conscious boundary management, facilitation, education, learning. And you can consciously learn if you don't have expectations blinding you to seeing what is in the present moment. If there's no expectation projected onto the screen of reality and you just see what is, you can learn from what is. And you'll learn way faster because you're not going to be mixing that learning with a bunch of projections from the past that really don't apply to the present moment.